Sa santulan, arani po ini deman sa duang kampo Ramos and Campo Aguinaldo, nasubutan mga marinong ini nagagamit kan sa indang mga bayoneta, tangani na atakihon man itong mga nagbabarikadang civilian duman. Iyan po.
(11 Greenwich Mean Time).
BBC World Service. The news, read by Mel Oxley. Fighting has broken out in the Philippines between the rebels and pro-Marcos forces at the Air Force headquarters base near the international airport in Manila. A few hours earlier, President Marcos announced a state of emergency, but his special broadcast from the palace was ended when rebels seized the main government television station. President Reagan has issued a warning that any use of force to put down the rebellion would cause untold damage to relations between the United States and the Philippines. A car bomb explosion in the Lebanese capital Beirut is reported to have killed at least 5 people. In the continuing turmoil in the Philippines, fighting is reported to have broken out at the headquarters of the Philippines Air Force next to Manila's international airport. One of the leaders of the rebel forces, the Deputy Chief of Staff, General Ramos, said that fighting was going on at the Villamor Air Base and that his forces had captured the information minister, Mr. Gregorio Sendanya. He also claimed that Philippine security forces at the huge American Clark Air Base had gone over to the rebels. Earlier, there had been reports that rebel helicopters had attacked the Villamor base and flights at the nearby international airport had been suspended. Some hours before, President Marcos had appeared on government television to declare a state of emergency, but was cut off when rebels seized the government television station. President Marcos was not in the building. Broadcasting resumed some while later under the control of the rebels, who said that the people had taken over and a provisional government was being established under the opposition leader, Mrs. Aquino. Later, government forces were reported to have taken over a privately run television station. President Marcos again asserted that he was in control of almost all the military, but the opposition say that several units have defected to them, including part of the Air Force. There's been considerable helicopter activity over the capital. At one point, a rebel helicopter flew over the palace and appeared to fire a rocket into the compound. A BBC correspondent spoke to the Air Force Colonel Antonio Sortello, who said he had defected to the rebels with 9 helicopters. Later, a rebel spokesman said their helicopters had destroyed government helicopters and a transport plane at the Villamor base, which lies beside Manila International Airport. Reporters at the airport confirmed that helicopters were in action there, and, quote, airport officials are saying that all flights are held up until further notice. Attention had been focused on Manila Airport earlier, when there were rumors that President Marcos was fleeing the country. These were scotched when President Marcos made his live broadcast, but since then, the rebel-controlled television has called on people to march to the airport, apparently to ensure that Mr. Marcos does not fly out. Police and soldiers loyal to the president have used tear gas and water cannon to disperse crowds trying to get into the presidential palace. In the United States, President Reagan's spokesman has said that any attempt to resolve the situation in the Philippines by force would cause untold damage to relations between the two countries. The spokesman said American military aid would be suspended immediately if that aid was used against elements of the Philippines military, which enjoyed substantial popular backing. This news comes to you in the World Service of the BBC. At least 5 people have been killed in a car bomb explosion in Beirut.
Not consider any of the suggestions about resigning, and so make it possible for this third force to take over political power. They claim that they are proclaiming Cory Aquino, but it is now quite clear that while they may proclaim anybody, they are going to control the government. And Enrile and Ramos are going to be the principal characters. I can only say that this is the third force that has come up. And I know that they will manipulate and use Cory Aquino only for their purposes of taking over government and political power through deceit, propaganda, and through the use of force.
Mr. President, while we cannot see you on television, we hope that you are watching TV right now, and we hope that you can view us. I have with me this evening is a group of distinguished panelists, and they will also
samantala mga kaibigan na nagkaroon ng difficulty doon sa ng Maynila, pero babalik namin sa inyo kagad ang interview. Ito na. At inaayos natin yung connection sa
Sister Rani.
Channel 9 po. Pinapalabas din ang interview nito kay Mr. President na hindi nakikita ang kanyang mukha. Ang boses niya ang lumalabas. Ganun din, simultaneous sa Channel 2 and 9. Okay, nandito na po sila.
Issues that are now in question at this hour. And I'm referring to one of the well-known broadcasters, Mr. Ruther Patigas, and our regular newscaster at Newswatch, Mr. Don Lee. And of course, we have a guest here in the person of General Pacifico Lopez de Leon, who will also be exchanging views with us. But in the meantime, Mr. President, Mr. Ruther Patigas would like to ask you a question.
Good evening, Mr. President, sir. Marami pong nagtatanong at dahil nga sa nawala kayo ng mga ilang oras mula kanina umaga na itira pa ho yung inyong press conference, paano ba natin italiliwanag sa mga nakikinig ngayon? What is the overall situation ngayon, sir, right now, Mr. President? Overall situation is that they're trying to use civilians to coerce and intimidate the military, including me, and trying to utilize the false propaganda that they now can send through Channel 4, which they took over by force this morning at about 9:58. I would like to say that I did not disappear, but we were trying to get into television. But apparently Channel 4 was not available, and I don't know what happened to Channel 7 and 9. As you can see, with respect to 9, I am being interviewed through the telephone. This is after a difficult effort to establish communications. The communications with me was always open, and I was in touch with everybody among the leaders all over the country, especially the political and the military leaders. So I'm here. I'm ready to answer any question. I have no intention to resign. I have no intention to give up the presidency. I have no intention to compromise on the decision of the people as proclaimed by the Batasan Pambansa. That certainly is something which is the most fantastic thing that I have ever heard. To drive out a duly elected president even before he takes oath, through all these demonstrations and through the action of the illegal political authority seekers who now have adopted the Maoist concept of power comes out of the barrel of a gun. And yet I received this request that I desist from using violence. If we do defend ourselves, it will be because it's necessary in order to save our lives. And we are doing this for the survival of our country. Because I know that if these people take over authority, they will not be able to get the country together. They are going to be subject to these pressures and the authority that is in the hands of the allies of Mrs. Cory Aquino. Who is a spokesman, a certain Mr. Sagisa, who is identified as a communist who raised the red flag some time ago in Laguna. And why are these advisors of hers all suspected of being inclined towards the left, like the KMU, Olalia, and Paya, and all the others? And this is why I say, this is a new, third political power group that utilizes spiritual terrorism, physical terrorism, and at the same time misjudges the temper of our people. They are claiming that our people are for Cory Aquino. That is not the result of the election. We won by 1.5 million, and Enrile claimed that when he was asked, I asked him, that there was no fraud in his region. But I lost in Batanes, I lost in Ifugao, and I won in one of my favorite provinces, Vizcaya, by only about 6,000 or 8,000. If we had cheated, certainly that would have been much more. So now that you mention it, I hereby proclaim curfew from 6 o'clock in the evening to 6 o'clock in the morning, all over the Philippines. Effective tonight, sir, today? Effective tonight. Thank you very much, sir. This is the first time I revealed it.
Mr. President, Don Lee has a question for you.
All right.
Good evening, Mr. President.
Good evening, Mr. Donnelly.
You have just ordered this afternoon, this morning rather, you ordered the troops to use small arms fire to protect their assignments. Don't you think, sir, they will not hesitate to use heavy equipment if they find themselves in desperate situations?
They have been authorized to do so.
Is there any way, sir, you feel we can avoid violence and bloodshed?
Yes, and that is only if the search for illegal force will now come forth and accept the terms of the negotiated surrender.
Statement, samantala hintayin natin ang patuloy na interview ngayon. kanya dito sa Channel 2 at Channel 9. At ang mga mamamayan dito sa Metro Manila ay patuloy na nakikinig at meron silang ibang haka-haka sa kanilang damdamin. Lalong-lalo na itong pagkaka-declare niya ng curfew hour. Ngayon, alas 6 ng hapon daw, mula kanina alas 6 ng hapon at hanggang bukas sa alas 6 ng umaga. Tatapat bagamat gano'n ang kanyang sinabi, ang mga tao ay patuloy pa rin na dumarami sa may parte ng Camp Crani. Samantala ay pagpatuloy
Sister Rani.
ang interview kay
Hello?
Marcos.
Hello?
I deny this completely. Na, Mr. President. Ano mo masasabi niyo dito, sir? Sa bulalaan niya. Paano silang tatawag ng special session? Sino ang maaaring tumawag at may kapangyarihan tumawag ng special session? Ang President lamang. Sino ba naman si Mitra? Mitra, MP lang naman eh. Paano silang tatawag ng special session?
Ibang tinig at maging tinig ni Ginoong Marcos ay talagang gayang-gaya ho naman ito. Subalit ayon nga ho dito sa isang mama na siya mismo nagkabit ng linya at gumawa ng possible way para makabit ang linya ng Channel 9 doon sa Malacanang ay nagsabi at makapagpapatunay na siya mismo ay nakita niya si Ginoong Marcos at nagsabi o nagwika pa na kung si Willie Nepomuceno ang nagsasalitang yaon ay hindi sana masasagot ang mga katanungan na binibigay ng mga caller. Kung kaya walang katotohanan na ang tinig na yon ay hindi galing kay Ginoong Marcos kundi sa isang di umano'y Willie Nepomuceno na isang imitator. Yan o ang ilang reaksyon na natanggap o naihayag dito sa screen ng Channel 9. Ay magsasalita siya at lalabas mismo sa telebisyon. Mga kaibigan, wag po kayong mainip. Maya-maya lang ay ipapahatid natin, no? Dahil medyo may kabagalan ng kaunti.
Gigi.
Natin kailangan ipasok pa ang sinasabi ng mga panelists na yon. Ang mahalaga ay mapakinggan natin ang ilang mga pahayag na ibibigay pa ni Ginoong Marcos, no? Samantala, ano kaya pakinggan natin ang iba pang sasabihin ng mga panelists? Sa telebisyon at maipakita ang kanyang sarili. Kaya ho naman doon sa mga nagdududa kami ho dito sa Metro Manila, nakikita namin ang itsura ho naman ni Ginoong Marcos, no? Makikita namin kaya kami makapagpapatunay sa inyo kung ang nabanggit na mga binitiwan niyang salita ay galing mismo sa kanyang bibig o sa Willie Nepomucenong nabanggit na magaling ho namang mag-imitate ng mga tinig, no? At yan ho, ay sa DCGB ninyo mapapakinggan, direct naman mula dito sa News Bureau ng Metro Manila. Ang iba pang impormasyon, bukod naman sa mga pahayag ni Ginoong Marcos, ay ating bibigyan ng daan sa pamagitan pa rin ng aming News Bureau. Tuloy na ilang mga pag-uusap na ginaganap sa mga oras na ito.
Susundin namin. Subalit matigas. Kaya kung yung talagang Bangsamoro Army, talagang army, supported with foreign assistance and logistics, at talagang consisted namin ang battleground ng Hulo, Cotabato, from 72 hanggang 1980. Kita mo, it took 8 years.
Okay, ilan ho yan sa mga pag-uusap-usap na nagaganap sa Channel 9. At Beno, medyo may katagalan ho ang pagbibihis ni Ginoong Marcos. Hindi yung latest. Ganun pa man ay nais nga natin bigyan ng daan na ito ho ngayon, magpapakita siya mismo ng kanyang sarili para patunayan. Sa pagpapatuloy ho, narito na ho, handa na siya upang wala pa, hindi pa na pa-flash sa screen. Ito ang ilang statement pa sa kanyang mga ibinigay kani-kanina lamang.
Alright, so I withdraw my through the facilities of RPN 9, IBC 13, BBC 2, and all the rest of our affiliate stations and our network stations all over the country via domestic satellite. We now present to you President Marcos from Malacanang.
Pero mga kaibigan, sa sabi nga ng anchorman, ayan na ho si Ginoong Marcos at humaharap na ho ngayon sa mga oras na ito sa telebisyon.
And our network stations all over the country via domestic satellites. We now present to you President Marcos from Malacanang.
Good evening once again to the various channels that are covering this appearance of mine over television and radio. I insisted that it would be best to appear personally in the broadcast of the television because of that outrage that, it was not Marcos who was answering this question, it was Willie Pumasen. Nakikita mo na naman ang mga ating mga kalaban. Sari-saring mga panil na ang ginagawa. But here I am, and I think you know the Daily Express headline for today. I'm holding it up to show to you that I'm here, and tomorrow, or rather, this evening, in not a month ago or 2 months ago, but now, today, I'm here, and you will forgive me the informal dress with my jacket on. But all of us here in Malacanang are now dressed, prepared for any contingency in any eventuality, whether it's daytime or at night. Anyway, I would like to repeat what I said. If the loyalists are losing morale because they cannot see the president here right now, and if they are looking for a guideline as to what they should do, perhaps I can invite them to come to Malacanang, especially on my oath taking tomorrow. It will take place inside the ceremonial hall of Malacanang Park. I repeat what I said over radio. The loyalists did not lose morale. You say we have not acted, we are silent. Yes, because we have to make the decision as to whether it was now time for us to protect ourselves and protect our lives, as well as protect the Republic of the Philippines, which is now endangered by these immoral, illicit third force, headed by Willie and Ramos, who are trying to take over the power from Cory Aquino and even Laurel. I cannot see what the future is for this group of oppositionists. It is in the hands of this third group of opportunists. I say they are opportunists because hindi naman napalaban sa election, hindi naman kandidat, at hindi naman masabing may partidong sarili, hindi naman masabi na meron silang patakaran na ihinarap sa tao ng halalan. Hindi. Basta tumatapos ang halalan, nais nila na gawin ang kapangyarihan sa presidente, nagplano sila ng coup d'etat. Ngunit ang mahalata nilang alam na namin at handa kami ay hindi na tinuloy. Nung hindi tinuloy, nagdahilan na si Enrile at nagtanggulan. Anong kanilang unang sinabi? We feel that we are going to be arrested. Nagulat ako. Bakit kaya? Anong ibig sabihin nito? Ibig sabihin nito yung nasulpan sila. At kasama sila ng plano ng kulay. Kanya at mga kaibigan,
inaalok nila na makisama na lang at huwag nila saktan ang mga mamamayan sapagkat ang mga mamamayan ay nagkakaisa ngayon upang magkaroon ng magandang at mapayapang pagbabago ang ating lipunan at ang ating pamahalaan. Katulad ng nasabi ko kanina na huwag kayong mabahala ng mga nakikinig sa ganitong mga report dahilan sa kami ay naniniwala na katulad ng nangyari kahapon na malalaki pang tangke ang hinarap sa mga tao ay hindi sila natinag. Ngunit isang mirakulo ang nangyari na ang mga sundalo ay hindi na tumuloy at makinig sa masayang pagkipag-usap ng mga tao sapagkat nakita nila na patuloy na nagkakaisa at nagdarasal. Sa katunayan, yung nangyari kahapon na hindi tumuloy ang mga sundalo, ngayon ay ang mga sundalo ay hindi pa tumutuloy at nananatili sila sa kanilang area na sa baba ng Maylibis. Datapwat, isa-isa nang dumidetekto yung mga scout ranger, isang lieutenant na graduate ng PMA noong 1974 ang umalis na doon at lumipat na sa kampo ni General Ramos at Minister Enrile at nainilagay na nga sa Channel 4 at kinuna ng statement na sa kasalukuyan kanya ring minumungkahi sa kanyang mga kasamahan na kung maaari lamang ay lumipat na sila at huwag na silang manilbihan sa isang diktasyon ng isang tao. Huwag na silang manilbihan sa isang diktador. Kaya yun ngayon ang mga nangyayari dito ngayon sa Maynila at ang buong pangyayari na wala tayong pinapanigan bilang isang non-partisan na istasyon na sa radyo. Kaya yun ay pinipresent namin sa inyo ang lahat ng mga lumalabas sa press at ang mga interviews sa magkabilang panig. Doon, nakuha ng News Bureau yan as of 7:30 ho. At ang isang apila na hinihingi naman ni General Ramos sa mga mamamayang Pilipino. Samantala, at this point, kasama ho si SM namin, with Sister Annie, ang inyong nag-aulat na nagmapaalam panandalian,
sa misang bayan sa aga, siring man ang gabos na sektor, lalong-lalo na sa mga profesional. Sa napapansin ni baga sa mga welcome bayan, ang nag-aratinder dyan sa na mga parauma, mga sabiunta ng mga sektor talagang naapi, na, pero dahil talaga dyan na bira tamaling ang mga profesional. Kaya yun ang pangapudan mo, no? Sa Manila, ang rebellion pinuunanakan middle class, no? Sa panginginuta ni Minister Juan Ponce Enrile, siring man si General Fidel Ramos, no? Kaya medyo dahil tamang gira-record mag-asa naman sa nangyayari sa Manila, sa dahil pa man sigurado ito, no? Sa baranga talagang ngunyan ang military. May
After 9 o'clock.
Bubantawad sa bantado sa ating mga kapatid na nasa labas sapagkat kung hindi po tayo magpapatuloy ay mawawalan lahat tayo ng liwanag. Kaya nananawagan po kami sa ating mga kapatid at tumutulong upang magbantay sa mga critical areas. Ang pagtigil ng broadcasting voice of the Philippines ay sapagkat sinalakay ng mga tauhan ni General Rivera ang transmitter sa ng voice of the Philippines. Kaya hindi na po natin maaasahan mag-transmit pa at mag-broadcast ang voice of the Philippines. Subalit ipagpipilitan po natin manatili tayo sa impapawid sa pamamagitan ng DWIM-FM. Yung po mga nasa pamamahay nila na wala sakali at walang intensyon na lumabas sakali, ang magagawa na lamang po natin ay mag-prayer brigade tayo. Itaas po natin ang ating mga puso at kalooban sa Panginoon upang sa ganon ay papanatilihin niya ang pagbabantay at pag-antabaw din sa atin. We ask you, we urge you,
to start and continue to pray, even if it would take you to pray the whole night long. Nang sa ganun po, yung ating mga kapatid na nasa labas ay manatili rin sa kanilang pagbabantay. Nang sa ganun tayong lahat na magkababayan at magkakaibigan ay hindi mawala ng pag-asa. We have to lift up one another. We have to hold on to one another.